It took me over 300 days to finally get to work on Cold Atom Lab, but it was worth it, and I'm looking forward to next week, too.
Thank you so much. We're so happy you're helping us.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts with Explore Scientific, and we are here with David Levy, Kelly Beatty, Rosalie Lopez, Vivian White, and Libby and the Stars. And it's been a great day today, and I'm real excited to get the 6th Global Star Party underway. This will be a 3-part program tonight. So when I end this, you're going to see it go off the air. You'll have to come back on, okay, because we're going to move to a different platform. Currently, we're on Skype. We're going to move over to Zoom. And for me to do that, I have to kill the stream and start all over again. But I think it's best because we have a lot of people coming on, and it's just going to work out better that way. But I first want to introduce my dear friend, David Levy, who has been an inspiration to me for so many years, as I know he is for so many of you. He has tirelessly worked towards educating the public about astronomy through his numerous books, through his comet discoveries, through his asteroid work, through all of his lectures. And I don't know, David, do you ever get tired of doing astronomy? Is that ever in?
Never, absolutely never, Scotty.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, anyways, I'll introduce. David, I'll turn it over to you and let you have the stage here.
Well, thank you, Scotty. Can everybody see me okay? Good. Okay. I'm David Levy, and I'm really privileged to be part of this Global Star Party each week as we discuss things that are of concern in the night sky and the day sky, and just try to go out and enjoy it. My topic tonight is darkness, and I'd like to begin that by saying that a lot of you, especially when you were younger, are or were afraid of the dark. You'd want to have lights on in your house, lots of lights on to keep the darkness out. Some of you, even when you were sleeping, would have a nightlight to help keep the darkness out. And although I've had a very long and interesting life filled with various moods, including depression and things like that, being afraid of the dark has never been part of that. I've always loved it. And I remember, I think when I was at summer camp in 1956, walking back from a July 4th event and looking up at the night sky and seeing a shooting star. I was 8 years old, and I was quite startled by it, and I looked to the others. I said, did any of you know? And the other kids, I described it a little bit, and then the thought hit me. Was that shooting star meant just for me? And I put that away into my little brain and let it fester for a while and grow a little bit. And a few years later, it developed rapidly into a lifelong passion that I've had to this day. I typically go out observing every clear night and every cloudy night. And I have here to show you my latest observing log. And the observing session that I will have tonight will be, remember, they're all numbered from session number 1. And tonight's session will be 21,726. And that's a lot of observing sessions to remember. And of course, we wouldn't be able to remember them if I didn't write them down. And that's one of the first things I learned as a kid. If I'm going to go out and see something, write it down. Make sure I'm writing it down. That is so, so important to be able to do that. Anyway, I've been outside. I've did a lifetime of visual observations of the planets, beginning with Jupiter in 1960 and Saturn also that year, into the stars, particularly variable stars, and especially into comets. In case any of you aren't aware, I'm interested in comets. I enjoy comets. I really do. And comets have really been very special to me for many, many decades. And we all have seen that this terrible year we're having was made a little bit less terrible by the chance most of us had to see Comet Neowise. And I'll never forget that day on the 5th of July, right after July 4th, going outside with a pair of binoculars with the rapidly brightening sky in the east, looking to the star Capella, which was just rising in the bright twilight at the time, and going down and down, and suddenly seeing this extremely bright object with a tail going up that could only be Comet Neowise. And it was just so special. And I was thinking, well, this is a comet I haven't seen before. And I said, hello there. How are you this morning? What brings you to our neck of the woods? Are you going to make our summer a little bit better? I certainly hope so. And even though we've had a lot of clouds this summer, I have nonetheless enjoyed very much going out and observing the night sky. One of the reasons I'm concentrating on the darkness tonight, because I would say 90+% of the observing sessions I have take place during the dark hours. But I do look at the sun every day. Today there were no sunspots, but there were 3 prominences on the sun that I was able to count. And to see how our local star behaves, how it observes, is so special and so wonderful, just to me. If all you get out of astronomy, if all you get out of your hobby time, of your relaxing time, looking up at the stars, is just to go outside and look, it helps if you write it down, your experiences. But if all you're able to do is go out and look, it's enough, Dayenu. It's fine to go outside, look at the night sky, and enjoy it. I always end these talks with some sort of a quote. And I found a good one for tonight. And considering my PhD dissertation was on Shakespeare and his love of the night sky, you'd think that I'd be quoting from Shakespeare. Not tonight. It turns out I'm going to quote from what I believe are the 4 most beautiful lines ever written in the English language. They were written in 1751 by Thomas Gray, and I'm going to quote them to you right now. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. The ploughman homeward winds his weary and to me. Thank you, and enjoy your observing tonight.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. Well, up next is the senior editor of Sky and Telescope magazine, Kelly Beatty. Kelly Beatty is someone that I too have admired for many, many years. He was, for me, the voice of Sky and Telescope, and really one of the ones who taught me the sky every day that I would call in to Sky and Telescope and find what's up, okay? Because he seemed to have the most reliable information to me. And frankly, I think at that time, Sky and Telescope was the only one that was putting out that regular type of sky information that you could easily access by telephone. This is, of course, way before the internet. And but Kelly is, to me, the face of Sky and Telescope magazine, and he is a genuinely nice guy, extremely knowledgeable. Great astronomer. This guy loves to travel the world, chasing eclipses and informing people of all that's up there. So, Kelly, thanks for joining us again. And this is I guess, the second installation of your 7-part series about the state of amateur astronomy.
Right, and Scott, thank you so very much. A pleasure to be here. A pleasure to share the evening with all of you. Wherever you might be. David, those are great words. I had a question for David, if I can, before I get started, which is, having seen Comet Neowise, and the first time you had seen it, did it remind you of other comets from your past? For me, it reminded me of Comet Bennett in 1970.
Oh, I thought it reminded me of a lot of the different comets. Neowise wasn't quite as bright as Comet Bennett was, Kelly, but it was certainly lovely to see and a welcome sight. And I got to tell you, I echo Scotty's introduction of you. I really think the world of you and your wisdom and what you've contributed and your role over at Sky and Tel.
Well, thank you very much. It's all smoke and mirrors, you know. You stick around in one place for 45 years, and you're bound to get your name out there. So, what I talked to Scott about, you know, Scott is being modest. He has been instrumental through his various roles over the years in really trying to enhance the outreach, the appeal of astronomy to the general public, and that was actually what gave me the thought to do this series on the state of amateur astronomy. So, those of you who were here last week might recall that I talked about the beginnings of amateur telescope making, beginning in the 1930s, and the beginnings of Sky and Telescope. First as 2 magazines, The Telescope and The Sky, becoming jointly Sky and Telescope in 1941. And in those pre-World War II years, it was very difficult to get a telescope of one's own. They were just not really that available. And so if you hope to own a telescope, often you resorted to making one yourself. And there were clubs. The one that comes to mind is the Springfield Telescope Makers in Vermont. That you know, if you were handy with machine tools and could connect pipes together and had the right equipment, you could make a telescope of your own that was quite serviceable. Well, I'm picking up that story in sort of the post-World War II years. We're talking beginning around, you know, the late 1940s. when several things came together in a sequence of events to really spur interest in astronomy worldwide, but especially in the United States. One was that 1948 saw the first light of the world's largest telescope, the Hale 200-inch reflector on Mount Palomar, which, by the way, had gotten started to be constructed before World War II in the 1930s, but the war intervened and it didn't actually finish until 1948. And so here we had the most powerful telescope in the world, so huge that it dwarfed any other telescope. I think at that time the second place was the 120. I was born and raised in Central California and had a chance to go down to Palomar on occasion because my grandmother lived in San Diego. And I was just so impressed by that. And surely that telescope, the existence of that telescope, was my trigger point for getting interested in astronomy. But also in those post-World War II years, there was suddenly a glut of surplus equipment, wartime equipment, salvage companies, Army Navy stores, things that really are kind of quaint and holdovers from a bygone era today. And you could pick up optics for what had been binoculars or sighting cameras or whatever for dirt cheap. I'm thinking of companies like Edmunds Salvage, which became Edmunds Scientific, familiar name to many of us. Albert Yeagers out in California, who had all kinds of cameras and optics, eyepieces, anything you'd want. So we saw through the pages of Sky and Telescope and the advertisements there, we saw the emergence of a whole industry of places where you could either buy components to make your own telescope or to buy your own telescope. And for those of us who've been around a long time, the sort of iconic amateur telescope of that era was made by a company called Criterion. And it was a 6-inch reflecting telescope, 6-inch f8, with a clock drive mount. And it was not exactly stylish, but it was certainly a good quality telescope. And I remember that I look back on it, I thought, oh yeah, this is the everyday telescope that everybody wants to have. But in those days, it cost almost $200. This is in the late 1950s. And in modern dollars, that would be almost a $2,000 telescope as a starter 6-inch telescope. So telescopes were still very expensive.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you made your own. And then in the meantime, in those post-World War II years, we saw a huge number of amateur astronomy clubs forming as in the early 50s and the mid 1950s. They were springing up all over the country. Now, a few had existed up until that point in the big cities like Boston and New York and Philadelphia and so forth. But all across the country, these clubs were springing up where like-minded people like us realized, this is pre-internet, of course, that there were other people like us who loved the sky, who loved telescopes, who loved just exploring, looking into the eyepiece and imagining what's out there. Now, all of that was kind of percolating along. And then in the late 1950s, the space age began. And that's an interesting story. There was an event called the International Geophysical Year from 1957 to 58, an 18-month period when all the nations of the world agreed to study every corner of the Earth as best we could. And that included near-Earth space. It was for the IGY that both the United States and the Soviet Union announced that they would launch an artificial satellite. And this would be for the first time. And of course, everyone expected the United States to win that race, that two-horse race. And so the problem was that we knew satellites could teach us a lot about a part of Earth that we didn't really hadn't explored. Where does the atmosphere end? Where does space begin? And so we needed a way to track those satellites, and through because the orbits of those satellites could teach us a lot just by circling around the Earth. So a project was born called Project Moonwatch. It was spearheaded by the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory in Cambridge, Fred Whipple was the director of that, and he enlisted the aid of amateurs all across the country to set up a kind of, sentry stations. Groups would look at the sky and record anything that might be flying overhead. And if it was a satellite, then they would record the time and date and telegram that over to Cambridge. And that would help professional astronomers try to pin down the orbit. And so it was this Project Moonwatch that, as much as anything, was a spur to get amateur astronomers into groups and start talking about, what it was like to own telescopes and to share their knowledge and so forth. Now, many of you know the story here. We did not win that space race here in the United States. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. And suddenly, we, the U.S., found ourselves in second place. And that's the last part of this story I want to tell. The fact that we were suddenly the second place finisher was a wake-up call across the country that we needed to beef up our science and mathematics in our schools. What we would call STEM or STEAM today for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics was given a huge boost. So everything changed practically overnight. All the curricula in our schools were revamped to be more science-minded. It was no longer unfashionable to be a science geek like I was in school. And so that helped propel amateur astronomy really into the forefront and just gave a tremendous boost to all of these clubs across the country and then around the world. And so it was against that backdrop that telescopes became more plentiful. We started to see telescopes becoming more affordable. Many of them were coming from Japan. Long, skinny refractors long, skinny refractors on spindly white tubes, and that continued into late through the 50s and into the 60s, and it was really sort of the heyday of amateur astronomy. Light pollution had not really taken hold yet. The skies were still pretty dark everywhere. I myself, living in Central California, I could go out into my backyard as a teenager, look up into the sky, see the Milky Way immediately, not having to worry about whether there were lights nearby. And it allowed me to sort of imagine what is out there. What does it all mean? What is my place in the universe? How did the universe come to be? And the thing that I want to leave you with was that was a time before the internet, before spacecraft had visited other planets, before the Hubble Space Telescope, when professional astronomers using the Hale telescope or whatever telescope they might have would peer out through the atmosphere, fighting the seeing, trying to gather photons either with their eye or with crude instruments or crude cameras, and imagine what the planets were like. Imagine what other galaxies were like. And I, a young man growing up in California, could have those same questions. What was the surface of Mars like? Was there life there or not? And our in a way, the thought processes, the questions that we were asking for the amateurs and the professionals were very much along the same lines. And that began a partnership, if you will, between amateur and professional astronomers that continues to this day. And we'll get into that more in the weeks ahead. It was that golden age from the post-World War II, late 40s through the 60s up until about 1970 was just a marvelous time. Some of us are old enough to remember that. For those of you who weren't, just imagine a world essentially without light pollution, where you could just go outside and see anything you wanted, anytime you wanted. It was a great, great time. And I don't have a quote to end with, but I just want you to picture those super dark skies anytime you wanted them. Scott, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. That was incredible. Well, yeah. The last program, Kelly lamented, thanks a lot for making me come in right after David Levy. Well, coming in after you two guys is pretty tough. And anyhow, but I'm really happy to introduce someone that is not entirely new to astronomy, but pretty new. Uh, I'll tell you a story. A couple of days ago, a family came into my showroom and they were looking around to upgrade their telescope. And I, started to realize that this telescope upgrade was for a 10-year-old girl, and so I was, anytime that a young person is getting into this hobby in a serious way, I become very, very interested. We all in astronomy outreach in our activities are always looking to the younger generation because we know that they're going to carry the torch. They're the ones that are going to inspire and illuminate and future generations. So and I think a lot of us just feel it's a duty to do our best for them. Um, I asked her family to come into my office. I showed them some videos, I think a clip from perhaps one of the other global star parties. And I asked Libby if she would go on to our show, and which she agreed to. And then we started talking about upgrading her telescope. She has a small 50 or 60 millimeter refractor. She'll tell you more about it when she comes on here in a second. But she knows how to use that refractor, which I was impressed with. And her family was looking to get the next level up, and so I started to show them a 4.5-inch Newtonian. And her father said, "Well, what is it going to take to really go the next level?" And I said, "Well, to be very honest with you, out of what I have to offer, it would probably be an 8-inch or maybe even a 10-inch Newtonian." And so I immediately started showing the Dobsonians that we have because I know that those are more affordable. Anyways, once they got into the office, I had made up my mind that I was going to sponsor Libby if I could be convinced that Libby would work with the community to help them learn more about space exploration and astronomy. And so I'm going to bring Libby. Libby in the Stars is her stage name, and she is Libby's the real deal. She loves NASA. She loves space exploration. Libby, how are you doing?
Good.
Good, good. So, Libby, I brought on a couple of other people here to help you learn more about all the stuff you're interested in. One of them is Rosalie Lopez, and I think I just have Rosalie's audio with me right now, which I'm sorry that I can't bring the video on. And then I have Vivian White, which I'll bring her on. She's with the Night Sky Network and the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. She's an educator in astronomy. And she is, so I just wanted you to have a chance to meet these people. I want to let you know that you have resources beyond your wildest dreams. Okay. So, what do you think about all this, Vivian? I don't
I
have
think I'll
any.
get off mute.
There we go. There we go. I got audio right now.
Hi, Libby. Welcome. I'm glad
Hello.
you're here with us. What is one of your favorite things about doing astronomy, amateur astronomy?
Um, I used to watch a lot of Marvel movies, and I quickly got into like seeing like all the space scenes, and I would only watch the movies that were like in space, like all the sci-fi movies. And I decided that I would just start studying. So I read every single space book that my school library had, and like I used all the resources. I got the NASA app. I watched NASA TV daily, and then I just quickly like learned the basics, the planets in order, the temperatures, and then I mostly enjoy learning about NASA history too, because back then there was a lot of like decisive stuff on who can work and who cannot.
Right?
That's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, that is a really good place to start.
Now I finally have Rosalie's video about this.
Hey,
So that's
Hi.
great.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
Hey, Scott. I just want to suggest maybe Libby might scoot over a little bit so she's centered in the frame better.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, put your head right over that NASA meatball there. That's cool. Okay. Because that's probably where you're going to be working one day. So, Libby, Rosalie is a senior scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She, I'm sure, as a young girl, had dreams of exploration, and you know, these kinds of seeds are born in a lot of us. And so, Rosalie, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more to Libby.
Sure. Yes. Hi, Libby. So
Hello.
I started getting interested in astronomy when I was a young girl too. And in fact, what did it for me, I think most of all, was the Apollo program. And we had the race to the moon, and it was a very exciting time. And I actually wanted to be an astronaut, but I realized that I was female, Brazilian, and had terrible eyesight. So it wasn't likely to work out. And then I thought, well, I really liked everything to do with space, and I liked the stars. And I thought, I'm going to study astronomy. And, you know, in the beginning, no one took me very seriously when I was like, you know, 7, 8. And I'm really glad that your parents seem to be taking you quite seriously. And my mother was very worried about how was I going to be able to get a job. But but when they saw how really determined I was, they really were very supportive. And I ended up going to study in England, and eventually came to the United States to work at JPL. And it's funny that my dream was to become an astronomer, a scientist, and work for NASA, and it happened. So, you know, if you just push that dream, it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and Libby did tell me earlier that her dream is to become an astronaut. Can you tell us more about that dream, Libby?
I about a month ago, 2 months ago, I went to space camp in Huntsville for a week, and it was really fun. And I was lucky enough to get in. We wore masks for 15 hours a day, and it was still hard, but we did still learn a lot of stuff. And it was easier to go on stuff like simulators because you have to wait in a line. And there was less kids there, so I got to do more, learn more, and it was like the blast. And then we recently, my mom, she found this like $15 cheap telescope online, and it was like someone else's like first telescope from like a long time ago. So we bought their telescope, and I started like observing every like night that wasn't cloudy. And my friend would sit out there with me, and I'd get on focus, and I'd look into the telescope, and I would focus mostly on Saturn because the moon was never out at my house. It was the other way. And then the moon finally came out, and that was one of the best things I've ever looked at. So I really want to go to the moon a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. That's great, Libby. I hope that you'll be able to go. So remember that it's important to do really well in school, and if you carry on learning a lot about the space program, you know, I think you have a good chance.
Yeah. She is, I can attest that she's very sharp. Uh, Vivian, you're working with a lot of amateur astronomers and through the Sky Network. What kind of path could Libby take to get to those next steps? What do you think?
Wow. Well, I think that, joining a local astronomy club, finding a group of people who have the same interest as you is a really good start. There are also quite a few Girl Scout badges that have just come out that are space science badges that are pretty fun to complete and give you like challenges and different ideas about ways that you can explore space and the path that lots of different paths that women have taken into. So that's a fun one. Yeah, I mean, definitely math and science in school as much as possible. I did not take math and science in school, and I regretted it. I had to go back to community college when I was in my 20s and start over in algebra. And it took me a lot longer. But if you want to do it, anything you want to do, you can make happen.
Yeah,
Truly.
that's great. Well, Libby, what is it that I mean? You've been involved with this since how old? When did you first become interested in astronomy and space exploration?
It was about 8, 9,
Eight.
and I used, like I said, I used to watch a bunch of Avengers, and I was like, oh, I just love only the space movies and Star Wars, and I used to watch all the movies. I would only like the ones with space in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, hey, they actually do this. Look at that.
Your brother, your older brother, was on the chat here. I'll just read this part. He says, as Libby's older brother, I can confirm she cannot stop talking about space right now. So, great. That's great. You have lots of people. You've already got some other fans out there. Dan Scoff is on with us right now in chat, and you were on with her. He says Libby was my super weather girl. She was amazing, and she got back from Space Camp 2. And she also just got back from Space Camp 2. Christopher says, I'm suddenly less worried about the future. Go Libby. That's great. Yeah. You've got already a lot of built-in friends here, Libby, and I asked Libby if she would consider putting on a weekly 10-minute program with us, and she pretty much immediately agreed. And then that afternoon, I got a list of about 55 different programs that she wants to do. So they range everywhere from the planets to black holes to the structure of nebula and distant galaxies, space travel, all of these things. So I'm very excited to work with Libby on that, and we hope that Libby can come back and do more programs with us. But this is your first time to be on our program. Are you at all nervous at all, Libby?
No, not really. I'm actually in calls 24/7 now. School and this, and then after school.
Yes. Yeah, so you're used to the virtual world right now.
Yeah, I have a whole desk set up.
Right.
I have like books, keeping my iPad up, another laptop.
Right. So what if we do another program, what do you want the subject to be? What do you think?
Probably other galaxies, because we just know so much about ours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many other ones. Like, space never ends. There's so many other ones. We don't know them.
Great. Well, anybody that you think that you need help with, we've got lots of astronomers here that can give you some ideas. So,
I think Dave Eicher would be a good one to talk to.
Dave Eicher, he just finished a book on galaxies. That's right. He'd be happy to help, I think. Um, I'm curious, Rosalie, what is available for young people from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as far as materials?
Well, there are a lot of materials online for teachers and students. I mean, one of the difficulties with the NASA websites is that there is just so much there.
Yeah.
When once she becomes older and she goes to high school, I think you have to be at least 16. You can apply to do a summer internship at JPL and, in fact, other NASA centers. And definitely, when you are an undergraduate, there are a lot of undergraduate programs for students to come and spend the summer working at JPL or one of the other NASA centers.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, 16 is not too far away, Libby. So it's going to go by like that. So, yeah.
In fact, my son did an internship with Amy Mainzer, who you probably know, Dr. Amy Mainzer,
Yes.
when he was 16. And he was looking at data from Neowise, and he actually discovered the comet Neowise.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very
He was
exciting.
nearly it didn't get his name. It got the Neowise name, but he got his name on a couple of papers. And he was nearly the youngest person to discover a comet. I checked at the time, but there had been another younger 16-year-old some time ago who had found a comet.
Oh, wow. What a thrill. What a thrill. Libby, there's a question for you. Someone wants to know, what are your thoughts on astrophotography? What do you think about astrophotography?
I think it's actually pretty cool because some people don't have like the money or like the time to go and get a telescope. So like they can basically view other people's telescopes from looking through astrophotography.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I took a picture through my telescope and my friend was like, hey, I don't have a telescope, I want to look at the moon, can you send me a pic or something?
Right.
You could send me pics and like share what you're seeing for your telescope.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Very good. So Libby, what is your advice? I mean, we talked earlier today about this, and I asked you, are there a lot of your friends that are really into astronomy? And you said no. Why do you think that is?
Schools these days just they never like kids just think, oh, I have to wake up early, I have to get ready, I don't get to sleep in, I have to go learn, have to listen to boring conversations. But it's actually the opposite, and they don't know that school can actually help them like get a job and go out and be able to get like a good job at NASA. And you have to like listen really well at school for you to really get a job. And my school doesn't really talk a lot about space. So if I am like sometimes I'll just read all the books they have because like they don't teach a lot of space and science and stuff at my school. But I would just take every opportunity that you have.
Yep, you told me that you read all the books in the library about space and astronomy. Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, Scott, this is Kelly. Can I jump in for the question for Libby?
Sure.
Hey, so Libby, are you able to see any of your friends from school? Do you ever get together at all?
I have one friend who goes to blended school, and we'll FaceTime usually a lot on my iPad, and we'll just play games on there. just talk and play games. Cause there's no way for me to meet up with my friends. So
Oh, well,
I'll sit at this desk and I'll play with them and talk and have fun because it's the only virtual connection.
well, one of these days when we can get back together again, I think you should invite your friends over to show them Saturn through your telescope. For a lot of us, what got us started in astronomy was seeing Saturn for the first time and realizing here was this planet a billion miles away that was so big and had these beautiful rings around it. It was just like a shock, you know, and I'm sure that's what you see when you look through your telescope. Maybe your friends will be more interested in astronomy if they actually got a chance to look through your telescope.
Maybe I could use astrophotography.
Maybe.
Like I said before.
Maybe. So Vivian, do you have any advice for her, for Libby going forward here?
Wow, I think you are on an incredible path forward already. I think you're light years ahead of most of us at your age. So I would just say, you know, I love your love of learning. If you just keep that like growth mindset of wanting to learn more and more about the world, you can't go wrong at all. I was David inspired me. I looked up one of my old favorite poems that I was going to share, just 2 lines of, from Sarah Williams, who wrote the old astronomer to his pupil. And I thought it kind of pertained to this one. She says, though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. I have loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night.
That's a beautiful.
I love that one. Yeah. So there's there'll be a lot of obstacles you'll have to overcome. As a young woman in science, as a young woman studying astronomy, it is not always the most welcoming place. So you might come up with challenges, but you absolutely have the brains and the gumption to overcome any of those.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and she has a very supportive parents as well. So
that helps a lot.
They love it, and you can tell they love her very much. Rosalie, any parting words for Libby?
Just do what you love and don't be discouraged. There will always be some obstacles along the way, but just keep pushing forward. And, I actually think that science on the whole is very welcoming to people of diverse backgrounds. And I can't say that I have had problems. And there were very few women in science when I did my, my degree and my PhD. But in fact, my advisor told me that I had an advantage being female because everyone would remember me because there were so few females. While, the young men, they kind of might not remember, but when there was a young woman, it's like, wow, So I felt good about that. I was different. But these days, amongst the younger set of astronomers, at least in planetary science, is about 30 or 35% female. So it's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah. Good. Things have changed. And Libby, there might be other young students out there watching right now. What's your advice to them?
My number one advice right now is take every single opportunity you have. Like literally, I read every book in the library. Anyone says, hey, want to do this? And it's with astronomy, I will say yes immediately because like one little tiny thing, like saying yes to getting that $15 telescope. I saw the rings of Saturn for the first time. It got me even more interested.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, that's wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think that we're coming to the end of our first segment of this program. And so I'm going to put the spotlight on me for a moment. Okay, so the way that this is going to go down is we're going to end this first segment of our multi-part global star party tonight. We've got lots of astronomers from around the world waiting to log on, so we are going to end this program at this point. Unless David or Kelly has or anyone has some last words.
Do you want to ask the first question, Scott, or wait till the next segment?
Yep. Let's ask the first question for the door prize. Now, the door prizes are sponsored by the Astronomical League, and they're answered by sending an email, and I'll write it down in chat so you guys have it. It's kent@explorescientific.com. So you're not going to answer it in chat. Okay? You're going to send an email there, and then you're going to join. The Explore Alliance by going to, and I'll give you the link for that too, because you have to be a member to win, and you can get a free membership. You can get a free legacy membership. So you go to explorescientific.com/alliance and join, and then you're eligible to win. But it is the first answer that Kent gets that's correct, with the person that is also an Explore Alliance member can win the prize. And the first prize is going to be your selection of an 82-degree inch and a quarter eyepiece from the Explore Scientific 82-degree waterproof series, very popular line of eyepieces, warranted forever with a no-fault transferable warranty. So what's the first question, Jerry?
All right, so David Levy and the Shoemakers discovered a comet, and they named it Scott Roberts. So what is the number? What comet number? I'm sorry. What minor planet number is Scott Roberts? What minor planet number is Scott Roberts?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm jealous of Scott because of that.
Can I yell out what it is? No. Okay.
No, I'm really jealous of Scott having an asteroid named after him. That's really an awesome honor, really.
It is. I was pretty much speechless when they told me. So, yes, it's a huge honor. So, anyhow, I think that concludes our first part of our program. And we are going to switch. Right now, all of us are on the Skype platform, and we're going to switch to the Zoom platform, which means I have to stop the stream and start it back up again. So we will see you in about 10 minutes or so, and you'll see the live programming come back on wherever you're watching right now. If you're watching explorescientific.com/live, you just have to refresh the page, and you'll see the live stream come back on again. But give us about 10 minutes or so, and we'll be right back. Thanks.